Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I'm your host and foreman Douglas Scoundrels. Today we are assembling the Abra-Cadaver box for the Resurrectionist faction. Box contains 6 models. The only named model being Ezekiel here, the gremlin that is riding another gremlin. And then 5 mindless zombies that are all gremlins, reminiscent of various horror movie characters. So here's our artwork for 4 of the 6 minis. These are versatiles, by the way, no specific keyword to them. In the back we have our renders, Ezekiel here being taller than everyone else because he's on top of another gremlin, and our 5 mindless zombies. Let's look at our sprues. For a big box, there's not a lot in the way of sprues. Ezekiel here is on his own. There we go. Have to focus the camera manually, I guess. Containing a reasonable amount of bits, and then the 5 mindless zombies, each having effectively their own column in this larger sprue, none of them containing a whole ton of bits. I do have the one that is missing there, so no worries on that end. So let's look at Ezekiel's instructions and then go over his sprue. Okay, we'll grab the Ezekiel's body first. Then we will start on his gremlin mount. So this is the body of the mount, and then this is the head, arms, what have you. So once those 3 are together, we will go ahead and add the collar of Ezekiel, the head and front collar of Ezekiel, and then the 2 halves of the gator skull he is wearing. So we will start with F7, then F2, and F1. Here's F7. F2 is going to glue right in here. You see this big tooth. There is a connection point on the back that it connects to. Fits in there nice and snug. F1 is going to go over the top of this whole connection point, so you shouldn't be seeing any of this. Okay. There we go. Seam looks pretty good. Make sure to squish it on there nice and tight. You definitely would not be able to do these 2 bits in the reverse order, so make sure you put the torso and legs in first. Now let's do the back part of Ezekiel's collar, which will be F5 here. And that's going to attach in the back there. There is a notch in this bit that I thought was going to be the neck of Ezekiel, but in fact it is just fitting in this shoulder. So keep that in mind. Now let's flip it over and put F6 right here, which includes his head. All good with that. Now last bit is F3 and F4, the alligator skull. F3 is going to be on his right side, and F4 is going to be on his left side. Got the right side of his head in. Don't worry too much about orientation. Let's just get the other part on, and once those 2 are connected, it should sort of slot into place. It took a little bit of pressure to snap into place. There is a groove right along the shoulder that this needs to slide into or snap into. Once it's there, you can really just wiggle the other side to fit into place with it. So I would recommend actually putting this side in first. But he is done. Let's put on a base. Ezekiel's all done. The hardest part for him was getting the left half of the mask wedged in there into his shoulder, and then attaching it to the other half of the mask without ruining too much with some plastic cement. That went fairly easily, though. Overall, pretty simple build, and I think the rest of the minis are also going to be quite simple. So let's move on. Okay, the mindless zombies are helpfully labeled A, B, C, D, and E. Will go in that order. It also matches the labeling in the instructions, which we will look at after we go over the first zombie and how we're going to assemble them. So Letter A, we will grab the body, A1, then add the extra leg, A5, the arm, A3. We'll combine A2 and A4 together first, which is the head and the gas mask, and then plop that on top of the body and call them done. Let's look at the instructions. Start with A1, now add A5, the left leg. Our seam looks good. He's got a weird stance, but that's probably because he's a zombie. Now let's do A3, the left arm. There's the arm. Kind of awkward to get in because the tooth that connects it is on the inside of the sleeve. Checking the seam down here and pushing and nudging where appropriate is the best way to go about making sure it fits into place. Let's set the body down and combine A2 and A4. A2 plus A4. Now let's put that on the body. The angle of the head is kind of weird to get right, but the tube definitely should go in between the body and the left hand. I think it could probably be glued to the top of the right hand as well, if you want, just to make doubly sure that it sits in place and doesn't get knocked off. When he's done, let's base him. Our first Mindless Zombie is done. We're going to call him Axel Warden. Hardest part was getting the tube in between actually the left arm. Sorry, I forgot. The left arm was a bit of a pain to wiggle into place. You gotta do a bit of poking and prodding, and then really check your seams and make sure nothing weird is sticking out. Now that's it. Let's move on. For our second Mindless Zombie, we'll grab the body B3 and then add the rest of the coat, B1 onto his side right there, followed by B2 the legs, B5 the left arm, and then B4 the face. B3 plus B1 and then B2. This one doesn't sit solidly in, so keep in mind that the leg is supposed to kind of follow the same contour as the edge of the coat here. Obviously, looking at what it's supposed to look like on the bottom will also be helpful to you. Okay, done with that. Whoop. Next, we'll do B4, B5. B5, the left arm. Arm is going to be sitting at his side. Fits in well with the coat. Barely see the seam. That's good. B4 the face, and we're done. I guess mask and face. Pretty easy model. Let's put him on a base. Mindless Zombie number 2 is done. We're going to call this one Mason Van Wees. Hardest part was getting the legs to attach to the torso, just because it doesn't lock into place. You got to make sure that it aligns correctly with the coat. Doesn't rotate too far back, but seeing how I did it on the bottom, you'll be just fine. Let's do our next one. Mindless Zombie C, big chunky boy. We'll grab C1 the body, then C3 the front of the torso and the head, C2 the right arm, and C4 the left arm. C1 plus C3. Now let's do C2 the right arm. And then C4 the left arm. Very simple, chunky lad. Let's put him on a base. Mindless Zombie number 3 is done. We're going to call him Eddie Ruger. 4 bits. Just very, very simple. No difficulty. I guess I did accidentally pop that left arm out of place, so we'll say the left arm. Let's move on. Mindless Zombie letter D is going to be our most complicated one, just on account of having more bits. We will grab D4 first, then add D3 the legs to it. Our missing piece at D2 will go on next, which is part of the torso and the back of the bucket on the head. Once that's there, we can do D6, the right arm and chest, D5, the left arm and chest, finish with D1, the head. Let's grab D4. Alright, got our teeny tiny body. That's hard for the camera to focus on. Let's add our legs down here. And goes in easy. Now, I was wrong. The piece that I had missing on my screw is actually going to attach back here. It is the back of the hair and the back of the head, which is also the back of the bucket. Add that now. Okay. Well, the back's all done. Now let's add D6, the right arm and chest. Okay, there it is. Now D5, the left arm and chest. They kind of interconnect, so all done with her. Let's finish with D1, the head. Okay, heads all together. She is done. Put her on a base. Mindless Zombie number 4 is done. We're going to call her Sherry Black. Hardest part was not really hard, but I guess interpreting the instructions to figure out that the back of the hair and back of the bucket goes on the outside of the mini, not in front of the torso. I guess combining the chest and arm pieces together while that bit is attached was a little bit difficult, but at most you put those on before you do the back of the head and you'll be just fine. Let's move on. Our last mindless zombie should also go pretty quick. Grab B2, the body, B3, the right leg, and then E1, not B, E1, the left arm, finished by E4, the head. E2, E3, the right leg, E1, the left arm, holding the right arm, and E4, the head. All done. Mindless Zombie number 5, letter E, is done. We're going to call him Meyer Michaels. Super easy. Hardest part was really just clipping out the bits. Nothing difficult whatsoever. Let's look at the whole box, shall we? The Abra-Cadaver box is done, containing Ezekiel and 5 mindless zombies. The box was quite simple, only having a few difficult bits out of the whole thing, and everyone is a reasonable amount of pieces. Ezekiel topping out at like 7, and then everyone else being 4 to 6 bits. Also, everyone's adorable little serial killers, or horror movie slasher folks. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's really it. I think the hardest part was the combination of the skull on Ezekiel and the left arm of the My Bloody Valentine mindless zombie. But that's really it as far as advice. Should be pretty simple to do. I have been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux.